Hey, you guys, this is the Couplings Fire podcast. Here's a couple of things you might need to know or maybe you just forgot. I'm Taylor, a volunteer firefighter and also a firewife to my favorite firefighter. Join me as I talk anything and everything fire related. I don't claim to be an expert, I just love to talk fire, and everything I say is my own opinion. My goal? To inspire anyone listening to take the steps to bettering their department, however they can. Let's get on to the episode. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Couplings Fire podcast. We have a fun one for you tonight, I think. I don't know how many rabbit holes we're going to take. I don't even know what all of the topics we're going to hit are on this one. This is going to be a lot of fun. I have a friend with me, Robert Ridley. He is the host of National Fire Radio, and I'm going to let him tell you guys a little bit about him, a little bit about where he comes from in his fire career, if you don't already know who he is. So Robert, I guess, doesn't matter which way it goes.
Rob is preferable, but I mean, unless I'm in trouble, like Robert Bryan, you know.
So I shouldn't have said, so I should have added your middle name for your intro if I was going to do that.
If you need my attention, that's the way to do it in the crowd. Robert Bryan, and I will turn around and look right at you. So no, Taylor, thank you for having me on the podcast. It's a pleasure to be here. So for those of you who are out there who don't know me, my name is Rob Ridley. I co-host National Fire Radio. I'm a co-founder of that with Jeremy Donch. We started that little project in 2018 to give back to the fire service. I work currently for the Fairview Fire District in Poughkeepsie, New York. I am a lieutenant there. Not sure why. No, they promoted me. I took the position, but I'm a career lieutenant. I've come from a volunteer background. I grew up in Sullivan County, New York, where I started volunteering for the Youngsville Volunteer Fire Department. That's my alma mater. And really, that's where I fell in love with the fire service. My dad was a firefighter. My mom started out as an EMT, and then later on joined the fire department. She was one of those first women to become a volunteer firefighter in Sullivan County. So that was kind of a cool thing to have. And then just grew from there. I mean, I remember the day when I was a kid that I found out you could be a paid firefighter, and I tried to convince my dad how he should stop being an electrical engineer at New York State Electric and Gas because he could go get paid to be a fireman, and how that would be really cool if that was his job. Obviously didn't realize the implications of that, but no, it's the fire service and emergency services has been a part of my life very much since I was a child in that community fire station. And I'm definitely somebody who doesn't forget where he came from in that regard, because I think especially in the United States, the volunteer fire service is such a strong crutch for the country as far as, our first responders and everything else like that. So yeah, it's a little bit about who I am, I guess. And I don't know, like what else you got for me?
Well, so we met on Clubhouse, and I don't intentionally really plug it every episode, but I almost do, just because I've met a lot of fun people on there, and I wouldn't have been able to talk to you. Well, maybe someday, you never actually really know how life's going to take you. But over the summer, we've connected with how many people across the country, talking with them about everything under the sun, and just getting different perspectives from people across the country has been a huge asset for me, at least.
Yeah, likewise for me. I mean, Clubhouse has been an amazing tool. And in the beginning, when we were in the midst of the pandemic, it was a great way for all of us to connect and have that fire talk and really get out there and get ideas shared. Now, I know our core group of people that we've met through there use it as just it's a good way to connect with new people. And really, I mean, I've met a lot of cool people through the podcast and a lot of friends, but the use of Clubhouse has been fantastic, because now I know people on the West Coast, I know people on the East Coast, I know people in the center of the country, and it's just amazing to have that network. And really, that's what it's come down to. It's the family aspect of the fire service that we often talk about and people think is not there, but it's very much alive. And I encourage anybody to come check it out. Like jump in a room with us. Yeah, it's a fun time. It's not necessarily going to be about fire department talk sometime, but I think the conversations that have come out of that, just they come out of nowhere, and all of a sudden we have that moment where we're in deep, and we're really like we're making strides, we're coming up with solutions, and I'm a big short-term memory person about putting things in your head in the short term, so that if you see a situation, you have a better idea of how to handle it. And that's one thing that Clubhouse has really been able to help me out as a fire officer, is just getting the conversation of things that are going on, whether it be in Iowa and Washington, or out in Pennsylvania, or in New York City, or wherever else we all kind of have our, our home state from. But being able to hear an experience from somebody else, put it in the memory bank, and then if it happens, I can kind of throw it up real quick and be like, wait a second, hold on, like, like we always, like Chief Steve, like, North Carolina, he said this, and this might actually, you know, this is sounding a lot like what he said. So you're a little bit better prepared. And I think that's just been a awesome aspect of the Clubhouse.
It's crazy. And it seems to me like at least I get energized every day when I'm back on there again. I get re-energized to learn something or do something new or connect in a different way. And like you're saying, you start thinking about all these little things you're learning. I can't tell you, it doesn't always work like this, that I have a notebook next to me while I'm on Clubhouse and working or something. But it's really nice when I do, because I can quick jot down thoughts or notes or whatever, from that, and then think about it later, or write, in another notebook or something later, more thoughts about it and get down deeper to it. Or, I've never been in the spot of an officer though before, and taking those situations to that. But I know a lot of problems that people are having on there are problems that are not new to the fire service, and somebody always has a perspective to help with it.
Yeah, very much so. Which actually really brings us up to like how we kind of started. I mean, we'll jump right into it, but
yeah,
we had a really good conversation one day about what a good member is, and specific. I mean, it goes to the career side too, because we certainly have our one percenters out there who really just, they spend 99% of the time trying to do 1% of the work. But we had a conversation at the firehouse one day about, some volunteer organizations that we know about, and how they have members who are bad members, and they hurt the organization, and how hard the organization works to protect those bad members, because they have I don't want, like, maybe the right way to say it is their misconception about, well, they show up for this call, so, like it's almost like because they do this, we're going to avoid this behavior, or we're not going to address this behavior. And I think that's where a lot of organizations, especially volunteer organizations, start to fall short, is they're not like, there's a standard or whatever it is, but like we make exceptions because we're so worried about this person leaving. And I think a lot of times, like we talked about it that day, do they understand how much that person's behavior is affecting the organization?
Definitely. It comes down to, what is your definition of a good member or of a bad member? Because I feel like this can change from person to person and department to department. You may say that, like, sometimes, okay, is it the percentage of calls or trainings that they attended? Does that make them a good or bad member? Is it that they're always available? Is it that they fit in? Is it the type of experience they've had before that? Is it the type of job that they have outside? Is it, what are they actually contributing? Are they contributing on the quote unquote outside of the department where they're actually on calls and things? Or are they contributing on the inside where they're doing more of the managing paperwork side of stuff? Are people who are not being able to show up because of work, are those bad members to people? And to me, it just all depends on what you consider a good member and a bad member.
Yeah, there was a firefighter, Johannes Kronk, who once told me that the characters are the same everywhere, but the cast who plays them looks different. And and I think when I talk about the good members versus the bad members, like the bad members are the ones who have, usually there's a negativity that goes, follows them around. They're the ones who, we spend a lot of attention on, and we're worried about, like what they're doing. They're not what they're doing, but like, well, we are worried about what they're doing, but like, their behaviors, their inability to, like, we can't quite trust them to follow the rules, and we're always a little suspicious when we are dealing with them. or they have a negative detriment to the organization. Be that, in public, they are a soup sandwich on a warm day, and they are not representing the fire service and the fire department in a good light. They'll have a very highly offensive shirt on, and it's, or they wear that highly offensive shirt to a call, and it's, well, while I'm here, I'm the one helping, and it's like, yeah, but you're making us look bad because your shirt is homophobic or it's detrimental to women, and like that's not a cool thing to have to deal with, and like how do we, like, there's no good way to fire somebody, right? Like if we wanted to get rid of someone, I mean, I've been in volunteer organizations, unfortunately, that have had sexual harassment issues, and they've brought members up on charges and suspended them, and they've been able to bring back enough of the old timers to vote them back in, and through their messed up bylaws, get them back on the street. And that's
Oh, do we really want to get into bylaws tonight? Because I could go down a deep rabbit hole with those ones.
I think one of the things, so, and like we don't have to like talk about the intricacies, but the one thing that our fire departments and our volunteer organizations, most of them have a very well historied machine behind them. And that machine served us very well. And I know in New York State, like back in the 50s and the 60s, the 70s, even into the 80s, when volunteerism was so strong, like the organizations had rules, regulations, bylaws, and they made sense and they worked at the time. Now, when you are an organization that, in those timeframes that we talked about, had 120 to 130 writing members who are actually out doing calls, to now there's a handful of 12 to 15, maybe 20 if we're lucky, that we know are actually going to show up. And we're still trying to implement rules and regulations that, quite frankly, don't address what the modern volunteer fire service looks like. In a lot of places, that's a transient population. I mean, even in my own fire district, we're a combination department. Most of the volunteers have moved out. And one of the struggles that we have is that the volunteer fire company, they haven't figured out that the student population is transient. They're going to do, 3 to 4 years here at the local college, and then they're gone. But we still treat them like we did the person who had a 9-to-5 job, was married. The wife was a stay-at-home mom, so he could go on the calls, and like, that 1960s family picture was perfect. And that's not what we have anymore.
But that's what everybody wants, apparently. That's what every department out there wants. That's what I hate talking about the quote unquote old timers, because I don't want people to think I'm trying to bash them either. Like it's tough being a younger person though, who doesn't fit into that mold. My job that I have, and in the past city I was in, I was a sports photographer. I worked nights a lot. Yeah. And I couldn't make it to every training or things like that. And not that it was necessarily looked down upon, but it definitely wasn't praised either that I was missing out on trainings to go to work. And there were plenty of times I wish we had an all day Saturday or just sometime during the day, on another day, to actually have a training to happen, just because I worked a little bit differently than other people. And I know I've heard of plenty of people who want to join that department and other ones who worked nights. There's no way they can make it work, but they could always respond to the daytime calls that we actually needed. But with the percentage of calls they had to come on to stay on the department, there's no way they could make it work.
Yeah, there was a department in Dutchess County that I belonged to for a little bit, the Hyde Park Fire and Water District, and they actually realized that was an issue for them. So they arranged for there to be drills during the daytime, because there were people like myself and a couple other members who worked either for career fire departments or they had nighttime jobs. And how do you punish somebody who's available in your daytime hours?
Yeah.
That was the one thing that was always, and said, well, they don't make the meetings and they don't do this, and they don't come to the drills. Well, why don't they do that? Well, they work nights. All right. So is it that far out of the bounds that we try to accommodate the training for them? Or is that just absolutely off the table? And like, we're going to take the member who's qualified, who can show up at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're going to boot them to the curb because it didn't make enough meetings. Like,
And you're going to take the guy who doesn't want to do anything for the department, stands in the very back at all the trainings, and comes to a call and maybe helps fill an air bottle or two instead.
Right. Because he's made it.
Yeah.
There was a guy who used to the joke on, but his thing was, hey, if you want to know what goes on at the meeting, you got to show up to the meeting. But some people can't show up to the meeting.
And are you really telling your potential and current volunteers that you actually care about them if you're not willing to try to figure something out that fits into their schedule?
Yeah.
You can't make everybody happy. It's the lay of the land. It's not possible. But you can try to look into stuff, especially if it would work for a few people.
Yeah. And I think that's always the thing that everybody like, and it seems like the fire service in general is very resistive to change. Mm-hmm. But particularly our volunteer ranks, like we really have to pivot. And I always say that for a lot of the volunteer fire companies that I've worked alongside with, I've been involved with, or that I watch struggle, if they were a business, they would be out of business because they fail to pivot and change their model and how they're operating to be with to like something as simple as I know where I work in the county. So I work in Dutchess County, but I live in Ulster County. So for the Milton Engine Company, I have my phone is faster than my pager, or just as fast as a pager, right? Mm-hmm. And they're even to the point where like Ulster County, pretty much, I think when they hit the enter button and dispatch the call, that it goes out on your phone. The county that I work in, they don't want to change for whatever their reasons are. And they have their reasons. IT is like, hey, like this is too hard. We would have to work as county workers and it would be very complicated. And you don't understand how stressful it is to be a county worker and do nothing all day. And I'm like, I get it, IT, like OCS or whatever they're called. Like they can't get it done. But like this is something that a modern fire department with younger members, they are tuned into their phone. Like mm-hmm. This is infrastructure at this point. So getting the message out to them, like something as simple as that, getting somebody who is savvy with, I don't want to say technology, but like somebody who can work an iPhone and shoot a video and giving them access to a YouTube channel for the district and being like, listen, I need you to shoot a video on this fire extinguisher for me so we can do it as training. And we can make that available for the members who are working nights who can't make training. And then like there's and it's a simple test. Like you can come up with some kind of a cognitive thing for them to fill out at the end of it that says like, hey, like if you watch the video, you'll know that, our water can has how many gallons of water in it? Mm-hmm. I mean, some simple, like we're not asking you to take the SATs and get into MIT or Harvard here. We're just asking you to understand that you watch the video and you learn the talking points, which, we put out. And these are all things that we could do to pivot and make ourselves a little bit easier with the fire service. But like I said, it seems like there's a lot of resistance to that change.
That's actually, so when you said the YouTube videos and stuff like that, that's actually an idea I had back when Chris was training officer and I was on the committee with him, was to record parts of our trainings that we had. Mm-hmm. And get not the whole training of everyone going through every evolution. You don't need all of that recorded, but just the basic, this is how you do it. Here's a rep for you to see it actually in action and whatnot. So people who weren't there at training still know what we did and could still go through it on their own. It wasn't there to convince people to not come to training. It was there as an extra thing. So if people wanted to go see it and learn it for themselves or whatever, or catch up, however you want to do that, or depending on how long you make these, if it's 5 or 10 minutes long to watch this, you could make it required watching for your department members to still watch it if they weren't there. It's not that long to do. And it makes sure everyone still stays up to date with the information, because with training and volunteer departments, you can't fit all the training we need in the year. It doesn't work. There's too much to train on. And people can only make it to so many things a year. I mean, you have ball games, you have family suppers, you have emergencies, you have work schedules, whatever it is, you have so many things happening, especially in the evenings. People can't make it to 100% of everything. It's not impossible, but near impossible for the average family nowadays, especially if your kid's playing, let's say, travel baseball at the same time as volleyball, at the same time as basketball. Yeah. I know families like that they're spread out thin and there's nothing they can do about it. it's still a way for them to get this information and put everyone on the same page.
Well, and I think too, like, if I look at the world of technology and how we've changed, like I am not mechanically inclined. Like, so when you see me with power tools in my hand, like call an ambulance, like call my wife because she'll tell me like, no, put that down. Like you do not know what you're doing. Like I'm very good
Put
at
down
like,
the K-12.
yeah. Like I can like smash stuff. I can do my job as a firefighter, but like me trying to like fix the door that's off kilter, like, nope, I got friends for that, right?
Yeah.
But like with YouTube, as an example, like I can go on there and I can figure this stuff out. Like I can PM and service my car because I've watched videos on YouTube and I can be like, all right, and you watch it's honestly like it's how I learn. Like I self-taught myself how to play piano when I was a kid, but now when I want to learn new songs, I just Google it and I find somebody who's played it and does a tutorial video because I understand chord progression. So I'm like, all right, cool. Like I got it. And now, all right, I need to hit these chords and this is the beat and this is how I'm going to figure this out. We can do the same thing with our technology now for the fire service. But at the same time, also, like I've always said, like quality training is what I was always yearning, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to do quality training. I didn't want to, we all have to sit through sexual harassment, OSHA, and all this other stuff. But like, I want to, when I show up to the firehouse as a volunteer, I need everybody to be prepared. And oftentimes we're not. We're throwing stuff together. Like, I mean, and it, I get it. It's a lot to do instructor one and to get those classes and to put forth the effort. But like, and maybe that's in some aspects where like we need to get the volunteer fire service to start adding a paid position, not like maybe not necessarily a paid firefighter, but like
Compensated.
yeah, a compensated
Yeah.
training officer, because like, you know, this is work. Like I, as a firefighter, or as a career firefighter, it is work for me to come up with the training and to document it. Like I am horrible at documentation. My chief, Tim Gilnack, and my captain, Justin Bowman, will tell you, like, I am horrible at image trend. I am horrible at documenting my training, but I'm out there doing it. And like, to come up with a lesson plan, to come up with all the nuances, it's work. It's an hour, 2 hours of just office work and getting some of that stuff done. And then that's not including the planning and calling and like, and there's all these, we're herding cats here. And
Yeah.
these fucking cats are pissed and they don't want to be herded, So like it's a full-time job. And like I said, I think it's just something that we have, like, it's another thinking outside the box is what we need to do to solve
Mm-hmm.
some of these problems. And I think it's just a way that we could solve these problems by thinking outside the box.
Oh man, you have my brain going so many different spots at the moment. Okay. Where do I start? Okay, so not this isn't the only way to, it's the fire service. There's no one way to do things. Okay, right? Let's just start there. No one on my old department was training officer certified or anything like that, right? But we made it work. And for years, that was kind of Chris's passion, was the training side of everything. But what we ended up doing, and this may not work for every department, but what we ended up doing is the beginning of every year, we sat down for a couple hours. It took time, but it was kind of on an off night or whatever that we'd had time and just kind of didn't want to do anything else. And we'd figure out what we needed to do for the entire year. We wrote down all the practices we had and figure out these are the most important things we have to hit throughout the year. So when are we going to do it? And then we would try to divide it up from there and just with general ideas. And every month after that, we had our training committee meeting and we would talk about the practices for the upcoming month. And basically each person on the training committee, either one person or two people together, were assigned one practice that they had to get ready and figure out. We would think about a lot of the logistics of it within that meeting of like what we wanted to see happen, and they had to get it done in time for the meeting. It worked very well. I really liked it. Our trainings you started seeing a higher caliber of training more often because of that. And the work got divided out between a few people instead of just all in one person. But I do like the idea of an actual compensated training officer, because that does take a lot of time.
I also think too, is that when you're doing training, we go to instructor one and we get the whole gambit, right? So we come out of there and we think we have a master's in education because of what we were just taught in
Yeah.
fire service instructor one. But the reality is, and I don't mean to say this that we have to lower our expectations, but there is something like that's a very like heart surgery would be something that I would want a very detailed explanation and procedures and practice and everything, right? Because that's like it's the heart. Like if we fuck that up, that's no good. Like we're not alive. But like stretching a line is something that doesn't require a lot of skill. It doesn't, or I shouldn't say it doesn't require a lot of skill. But like for us to go out and do a drill for stretching lines, like we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to plan that. I just need a fire engine. I need some able bodies. I need some hose, a nozzle, and some air packs, and I can build that into a pretty good comprehensive drill and get a stride. And maybe that's where we're kind of missing things as well in the fire service. Is there's nobody saying like, "Hey, listen, it doesn't need to be rocket science. We're not going to the moon, and we're not racing the Russians to the fire." Although that would be pretty cool because I've seen some of those Russian firefighting videos, and they are batshit crazy. But you know, like doing a drill for stretching hose lines and getting some members in the community to let you use their homes, and
Mm-hmm.
that way, and then getting them involved. Like we had the Mara soccer team, girls soccer team, like we used them one day and they came up and they're like, "Oh my god, Becky's stuck inside, like come on," and like tried to take the hose from the firefighters and stuff. And like,
That's awesome.
like it's, you can get the community engaged and like start preparing. And I know Dave Mellon, like you had him on. I guess he's in front of me. No, just getting to Dave. But like, in all honesty, like Dave talks about that the lost art of realistic fire training. Like, think about the member of your fire department who has a small child, and you just doing a hose stretching drill on your house. And when they show up, your kid's out front, and just have him tell the first firefighter, "My mommy's inside." Like,
even on the training, that's gonna screw you up.
what better way to see it in a controlled environment than when it's 3 a.m. and it's the first time you're hearing that, and like it's just one more thing that we can add to the realism, but it doesn't have to be complicated. And this is something that can be thrown together in 20 minutes, or like start to finish. Like from 20, like we can, like my group, like we can go through 4 people pulling lines and everybody being in the position, including masking up and stuff, and re-racked within 20 minutes. So, and I think the expectations, I guess, in this long diatribe need to be lowered, because we don't need to go to the moon. We're just stretching a line to the door. And then the next one builds off of that, and it builds off of that, and it builds off of that.
So with the fire trainings, yeah, it definitely doesn't have to be rocket science. And I think for a lot of departments, you just have to start somewhere. It doesn't matter, like you don't have to do every single week or intense practices every week. You need to start somewhere. I remember what I was going to say. So, I mean, I'm assuming you're going to agree with me that us as firefighters, we want interesting practices though, and practices that are actually going to make us work and do work to keep us actually engaged in the practice. And I wonder if it's been the trend of kind of not dumbing down practices, but just making them too easy on people and just wanting to take it easy on the guys, let's say, right? The quote unquote, everyone guys. Are we training people to not want to be there and to take everything too easily and to not put work into it anymore and just getting bored with coming to practice almost?
Yeah, all of it. So when you said that the take it easy part, I belong to the Rhinebeck Volunteer Fire Company. I've been in like more fire departments than I've had pairs of underwear. Sometimes it seems, but so I lived in Rhinebeck for a couple of years at the village of Rhinebeck in New York, and I joined that fire department. I was very excited for it. They have a really badass ladder truck, and and just a good group of people. But there was a member there who would always tell me like, "Hey," like, and we would pitch a new idea. We would do some training, and we would talk about it. And he was one of those ones who's like, "Hey, like we're not paid guys, like we're just volunteers." And he would always kind of slow it down a little bit. And I was like, why lower the expectation though? I was like, the public doesn't care. They're calling the fire department. They expect you to come in. And I was like, and I told him one day, I was like, you have stories of your past where like, your younger self, you weren't saying that you were just a volunteer. You were like get out of my way, I'm a volunteer. Like I'm going to go in and get like, and we're talking some like a real aggressive stuff. So I think the fire service does, in a lot of ways now, they worry about pushing members off from training because we've had, and I don't want to call it a training scar, but we've had those people who are they get a little ego, they get a little authority. And like training goes from training where you're supposed to learn something and harness a skill to beating the shit out of people for no reason. And that's a problem. And like when we see that, we have to call that out immediately. But like on the same time, when the people are like, hey, we're just volunteers, like, no, like you're the person coming to answer my call. Like my wife drives from my house all the way up to Rhinebeck, and it's for the most part, I believe it's 100% volunteer coverage. Like I don't need that person to, if my wife's in an accident and she's trapped in the car, like they can't, not get her out and say, well, I was just a volunteer. Sorry. Like, no, like the public expects us to perform, so we have to do that. The other thing, like,
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, the people say career and volunteer are different. They are correct in that they are ran differently from the inside, from the authority, from the way they're structured on the inside. From the minute you step into the apparatus bay, though, they should be exactly the same.
Yeah, I mean, the expectation is from the public is the same. And one of the things I was going to talk about, I wrote down training issues, but I was like, I put gear donning and drills and like stretching lines and water on the fire. And one of the things that I think we often miss the point is connecting the dots. So like one of the first things that, and you can ask any of the probies that I've had, when you come out of the academy at Fairview, like we do gear donning and doffing drills. And I have a 60-second standard that you have to be from street clothes to on air within 60 seconds. And the New York State Fire Academy is an interesting organization, and they're going through some growing pains and some training scars of their own, to put it lightly. But one of the things that always happens is when I do this, the guys are like turning on their bottle and then they're like 4,500 psi, it matches to the regulator. And I'm like, hey, like that's really good firefighter one shit, but like ditch that. The public doesn't care because you check your air pack in the beginning. Let's go.
Yeah.
And like I hammer them on it, and then typically what I see is a minute 30 is when I get them down there, and then I go and get my gear, and they're like, oh shit, the old guy with gray hair is going to do this with me. And then nobody has a problem getting under 60 seconds. But my point in all this is I said, like, listen, we're not going to have a situation where necessarily that we're not going to put our stuff on. But like we could be out on that ambulance call, and our ambulances, we run 2 BLS ambulances. They have SCBA, they have a set of irons and a hook and a can. I was like, you could be at the hospital, get called for a structure fire and get there, and flames are blowing out the window. And that's where the 60-second drill comes into play, because now it's the real deal. You have to give a size up. You're going to be the first arriving unit. You got to find a place to beach the ambulance, and then you've got to get dressed. And every second is counting when mom is yelling that the 3 kids are trapped on the 3rd floor in the back bedroom.
And you're really going to be taking a minute and a half to get in your gear and on air while you're staring at that kid.
Well, not even like just the building, right? Like yeah. They're pulling you, like they're trying to help, like, and so like it's that whole going from the known to the unknown, like stretching the line, and like, I love using YouTube because so many people are putting pre-arrival videos, and I always have a stopwatch on my phone, or I used to have a yellow one that I annoyed my one captain with, but like I start the stopwatch when the maxi brake or the parking brake gets pulled on the engine, and I see how long it takes a department to pull a line and get water on the fire. And I'm not saying that we have to sprint and run like a crazy person, but the house is on fire. Like this is somebody's livelihood. It's, there could be somebody trapped. We know that the faster we get water on the fire, the faster we're going to have a positive outcome. And you start watching some of these videos, and you really just start watching the seconds tick away, and you watch this fire get more involved, and it just, it consumes more. The conditions inside are becoming much more untenable. And then you see people trying to stretch a line, and they're just, I mean, it's like we're thumbs, they can't do it. The telltale sign to me is I hear that primer pull, right? We're using tank water and we're pulling the primer. And I've never understood that, because I've never had an issue where I would just pull tank to pump and the water's come in like it's designed to, and out.
Yeah.
And maybe somebody will correct us in the comments of our podcast here.
No, you shouldn't pull the primer unless you're drafting.
Right. So but like there's all of a sudden this long primer pull, and I'm like, this house is on fire. What are you doing?
Or
like
if you're drafting, that makes sense. If you're not drafting, what are you doing? You're wasting time. Yeah.
So it's I utilize these things like in my career department to just illustrate what we're doing, so I can set the mindset. And the videos don't take long. And then when we go out to do the training, they're like, all right. And I'm like, hey, remember what we just watched? Somebody's home burned down because it took the fire department 5 minutes after they pulled the parking brake to take the water that they carried in the tank, put it through the hose and out the nozzle. So let's see how fast we can do this. Like, take your time, but be quick about it, and I think that kind of mindset needs to start coming down. But I don't think we as a fire service have taught people how to actually run these drills. We've taught them how to have a lesson plan, how to have Maslow's hierarchy of needs met, have an enabling objective, and all these other things that go with it. But like, we actually haven't been like, here's how you really do it.
Well, if nothing else, you always focus on a small part of the drill, which is important to get the skills down, right? We need that, especially for just refining and getting faster. You need to separate those skills. But yeah, same as you. I don't see people put those skills together into a big scenario and actually go hit the fire, fake or real or whatever in their training scenario often enough from start to finish, from actual page out.
Yeah.
So
we did 45 minutes the other day, and in 45 minutes we had thrown ground ladders, we had stretch lines, we had flowed water, masked up, did a little bit of stuff on positioning. We ended up shooting the stick up off the ladder truck up to the building, and like, it all happened. And I think the other thing, and my other point is this, is that like, there's a point where you have to like kind of let go of the reins a little bit and let the people work, let your people do work, because if they're given the opportunity and you give them some lanes to travel in, they're gonna pleasantly surprise you.
That's an interesting thought, because I've seen people do it once in a while, mostly in like at conferences or other outside trainings or things. But that is very interesting to let the scenario keep playing out, let them do things. Don't fix things. Don't stop it when you want to stop it necessarily. Let it play out as long as you possibly can, and almost see what they do next.
Mm-hmm.
See if they actually continue it.
We did a really good, I got this idea. It might have been from FireX Talk, or it might have been an interview from somewhere. But I did a drill one day where I started we did a RIT evolution, or fast evolution for everybody in the Northeast, because we don't believe in RIT, we call it fast still. But regardless,
I'm apparently so new into this. I've never heard fast.
It's all good. It's I believe it's mainly a New York City term, but regardless, like, we did a firefighter down scenario. So we went in the basement, we got the guy out, and while this was happening, our volunteer EMS captain was there, and I had him get a CPR mannequin, and put it in the ambulance. And like, so everybody came out, like the scenario, they got it done. And I was like, they're like, all right, everybody start taking your stuff off. Let's talk about what happened, what went well. And we did the whole critique. And then I pointed to one of the guys, it was Mike at the time. And I said, Mike, just do me a favor, lay down. So he laid down because he didn't take everything off. And I was like, Mike just had a heart attack. This is the real drill. Get him out of his gear, put him on the stretcher. We're gonna do a working code to the hospital. And they're like, what? And I'm like, Mike's dead. Let's do this. And I made them like do the whole, like, get him out of his turnout gear and fumble fuck with all that stuff. And then like, when it came time to getting our firehouse, we can't get the stretcher out without pulling the ambulance out. So like, one of them was like, I was like, get him in the ambulance. Let's go. Like, what are we doing? Has anybody called his wife? And like, just kind of putting pressure on him in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And like, they got the stretcher out, they got him on the stretcher. And I was like, all right, you guys get in the other ambulance and like leave Mike alone. And Eric had everything set up, and I made them do CPR like to the hospital, like the whole, like, so it was a start to, or beginning to end, I don't know, whatever, know. But like, it was outside the box, because that was not what they were expecting. And it was just, it was a good thing, but it was also very, very, very real, I guess. I don't know.
That's awesome.
And I got the idea because there was a guy who did that and he actually ended up having a heart attack. And the guys, as he was collapsing, he remembered them being like, really?
Oh, goodness.
And he woke up and, as he put it, I got the coldest breath of air I've ever taken before.
Well, it happens, and it can happen on a training. I mean, you hear stories of it all over the place, so people should not be getting too comfortable. So again, fire service, you need to be prepared for anything to happen kind of at any time and just let your training kick in for that.
Now, I think another thing too, Taylor, like we talked about this before in Clubhouse with some things, but like on the aspect of training on a more global scale, like there's nobody out there that talks really about how the volunteer fire service is actually really fighting fires.
Yeah.
Like if I pick up an IFSTA book or Jones and Bartlett or any of the other major manufacturers of books out there, like I think every scenario is like your initial response is 3 engines, 2 ladders, and a heavy rescue. There's 35 people on scene within 7 minutes with this many gallons of water and fire hydrants and all this stuff that like is not really what we actually do. Yeah. And I know in the past we talked about that because where you guys were previously, there was limited manpower.
Mm-hmm.
Like pretty much all the time. There was
all the time.
There's limited manpower and there was like not enough manpower is pretty much how you the 2 shifts ran it. But like I think it's like really important because like we get firefighter 1 and our members are really excited about this and they've learned all this stuff. And then they come back to the firehouse and we almost have to retrain them because the reality is we're not actually doing nobody's doing what they taught or teach in the book.
So you want to hear something interesting? At least I know in Nebraska, I don't know about other states, but I know at least in Nebraska, there's no official word out there of needing to have firefighter 1 to be on a volunteer department. Now, different volunteer departments have their own, what's the word I'm looking for? Have their own
regulation standards.
Thank you. Standards for it and stuff. So they can require it, but there's nothing official in Nebraska that says you have to have firefighter 1. So in a lot of these very small rural communities, most people don't, if anyone has it, maybe 1 to 3 people have it in these communities, unless the department has had it in their bylaws that you have to have it. So that, I mean, like we don't necessarily have to go down that rabbit trail yet on that. But you're right with the way they're trying it in the book and then trying to manipulate that into the way fire's actually getting fought and the way we actually do it. I know it's the same, at least with career departments. You go through the firefighter 1 book and they still have to tell you, oh, this is the actual way you do it too. You don't follow this. So why is it getting written that way in the first place?
The IFSTA manual was the same for me as it was as a volunteer, as it was a career firefighter in the academy. Like the manual was the same. It was just the instructors who were teaching it were different calibers. And honestly, I don't know. I mean, I don't have an answer for that. I know that states and whatnot adopt certain curriculums and they buy into the books that they get and that's what they teach. But yeah, I don't have an answer for you. But I know it's something that we constantly have to work with because I think I was watching a video on TikTok and it was really cool because it was a volunteer fire department who was using TikTok to advertise for membership, and I thought that was the awesome thing in the world because like at least they're on a social media platform that young people are looking at. And I was a big fan of the video until they were like crawling on all fours, and I was like, who crawls and I was just like, that like it was legitimate, like they read a training document and this is what they were doing.
Yeah. And
I'm not saying it's the wrong way and I'm not saying it's the right way, but like I mean I've had a very hard time crawling into houses on my hands and knees. So.
The first time I learned the tripod method, I was amazed. It made me so much faster. It made me so much more confident in my searching, in even dragging lines, because what I had been taught was you're still on all fours dragging lines. It was a nightmare to do that. learning the tripod method and stuff like that. I can't remember what they actually call it for the pulling hose lines at the moment, but pinch method, maybe something like that. I love that one.
Yeah.
But it's so different. And granted, with the Firefighter one and with the books, at least information's starting to get flowing. You're learning stuff from it. I mean, I don't think we'd argue that in any case. You're learning stuff from it if you don't know anything about fire. It's getting you somewhere. It's just honestly very annoying that you still have to almost reteach a lot of things to people who have been drilled in. This is how you do it. And you have to just completely change it all.
Yeah. And I think it's also why it's so important, because like for a lot of departments, and I saw this in some of the departments that I volunteered in, they like, if you come in as a volunteer where I work, because we're a combination department, and you're taking firefighter one, once you hit the SCBA portion of that class, I'm working with you as an officer in an SCBA. Like, we are going to start reinforcing that, because the more time I get you in that pack, the more comfortable you are, and the more we can start. Like, I had a guy once who's like, well, we haven't done search yet. I was like, it's all right, I'm going to teach you the wrong way and how to do this. And he was like, what do you mean you're going to teach me? Like, the state's going to teach you one way, but I'm going to teach you how to actually search a room today. And like, we're going to like crawl, walk, run, like whatever, like we do the thing. But like, it's so important, because like, especially when people are going to that class, like if we're not there with them while they're doing it, then, and I mean, we don't have to go to class with them, but if we're not seeing them on the drill night at the firehouse, or whatever, the weekly equipment test, whatever we're calling that one night at the firehouse, if we're not checking in with them and we're not doing something with them, we're going to have a lot of work to do when they graduate and they get through that firefighter one and they come back to us. And I mean, there's departments that just, hey, you got firefighter one, cool, you're now an interior firefighter, congratulations. And like, it is what it is, but some people will work out fine and some are going to have a huge learning curve. But yeah, we have to be involved, I guess, is really what it comes down to.
Yeah. Well, and like you were saying, how, they get taught in the book that you have however many engine companies and truck companies and stuff coming. You get an unvolunteer department, you might only have one truck there with 4 to 5 people on it for 5 or 10 minutes, depending on when the second truck comes out. Let's say on a good day, you have 2 trucks that get rolled right away. You have an engine and a truck. Well, and a lot of times volunteer departments, they combine their trucks and engines kind of into the same thing. And they put a lot of both tools on both things. I know ours did that, and a lot of them around us did that just to make it easier. So you might have two engines coming, and whatever, but you still don't have enough people around to do all those different jobs they need to do, to have a search team and a suppression team, for that. You can't do it. So you have to start combining and merging. And it's a lot of times, if they just go through the firefighter one course and they don't have a department that they're on or other people willing to work with them or teach them or able to do that, they don't get the real world. You're going to be short staffed and you have to find a way around that to make it still work.
Yeah. A handful of times have I been on a 4-person hose line, like,
yeah.
Just not a reality, but we teach that, we teach the 4-person or 5-person search teams. Like, I mean, I have searched houses by myself, and my partner has been putting out the fire. Like, it's just, that's how that stuff is going to roll. So, one of the things that we talked about off camera or off mic, because we're not videoing this, right?
No, okay. You can say off camera, you can whatever.
But I know before we started, we were talking about like, you had asked to change gears a little bit about like being a career firefighter, but also being a volunteer, and kind of phrased up the question of like, hey, is it important for you to take part in the training? Because there's some people who don't, or whatever the case might be. But like, my answer to that was, hey, like, it's very important. And one of the reasons why it's so important is because, which is actually why I'm going to be resigning, unfortunately, from my the department I belong to, is that like, I haven't made the drills, I haven't made the training. So like, I'm lacking in the spirit decor, so to speak, of working with my other fellow volunteers. But like, when I'm in, and I need to be at the training. Like, I don't need to be taught how to hit a fire hydrant. I've got that down. Is there something I could learn? 100%. But it's just being there and being part of it, because it's kind of like that whole embrace the suck thing. Like, I'm going to do the skill with you because it's just as important as I do it as you do it. Because, if I'm in that, if I hop in and I'm in that writing assignment, that's what I'm going to do that day.
Well, it's
So
not
making
just
sure that
all.
I'm taking.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it. You can cut me off.
Zoom's just a little bit of a lag that it's really hard. But it's not just the knowing, learning of the skills, the practicing the skills with them and stuff like that. But I think it's super important, if you're somebody who's a career who's also volunteering, that you do make it to the practices. It's something that I very much stand for, that you should be there. Not necessarily that you need the extra practice or work or something for it, but just to be able to bond with those people better, because you have to trust them and they have to trust you just as much. And more likely than not, they're going to work differently than what your career department does. Even if they're very, very close and on the edge at the same time or whatever, there's always something different of how they do things. And you can't come in there and do things the way you've been doing on the career side and expect them to change or accommodate you necessarily. It's not always going to work that way. And it might actually make things harder on everybody than if you were to just learn how they do things and kind of remember and work on that when you're there. But you have to have time that you can work on that while you're practicing with them and training with them, and to be able to implement it. So
I remember I had somebody once who told me they were intimidated by the fact that I was a career guy, and they thought it was like, they were like, yeah, I'm not sure if I should like say things or and they didn't want to talk. And I'm like, no,
I
like
understand it.
you need to tell me if you see something. Like, I don't see everything. Like, I want you to communicate with me. I want you, like, don't, like, here I'm a volunteer just like you. Like, I may have some more training, I may have some more experience, but there's other areas where you probably know a lot more than I do, and vice versa. And we're here to play off of that. And like, it's very important for you to very much communicate what's going on to me. Like, I'm a big talker. I like talking. I like talking on the fireground, like, not unnecessarily. It's not like I'm sitting there, it was the best of times and it was the worst of times. It was just, like, but like, I am a firm believer in like either declaring tasks that are done, or like, hey, I'm going to search this room down the hall, or we're moving forward, whatever it might be, because I feel like that's just good communication. And I want you to tell me stuff. Like, I want you to talk to me. I don't want you to ever feel like, if you say something, I'll be like, you son of a bitch, why did you say that out loud? Like, no, like, that's not how this works,
I can definitely see that though, because I honestly would be one of those people. If somebody from a career department, if they have a couple of years on, even if it's less years than I have on the volunteer side or whatever, they are doing this for a career. And in my mind, they almost outrank me automatically, even if I'm the same level or even above them on a volunteer department. It's a very hard thing to break in your brain that, yeah, you are the same level as them when you come on that department. It's something different, and they have different experiences from you. Or even if they aren't as well trained as you or as well versed as you in responding to calls, they can see things from the outside. I mean, you can see it with personal problems and with fire problems and with political problems, whatever. If you see things from the outside, it's a lot easier to than you correcting something on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I love questions. I want people to ask me things, like, hey, why did you do this?
Yeah.
Why did you approach it this way? Like, like, what were you thinking when you did this? Like, because I want to understand where your mind was, and vice versa. Like, it's a two-way streak. Like, I want to like figure out like, hey, why were you doing that, Taylor? Like, why did you get off the truck and you selected those tools? Well, because I don't know if you happen to notice from all the corn, but we're in the Midwest, and like the ceilings in the barn are kind of high, so you're going to need a longer pike pole, like something like that. Like, all right, like, cool. Like, like, why did you grab bolt cutters? Well, because you might have to, if the fire isn't involving the milk room and where the cows are, we might have to cut the chains off, and it's the easiest way to get the cows out of there, whatever the case might be. Like,
Yeah.
It's just like, there's different, like, what I carry in my pockets is not going to be the same that you carry in your pockets because of the buildings that we're responding to, but it's just as much. It's like with National Fire Radio. We started doing apparatus innovations because we figured out that the Midwest is building a Midwest fire truck, the Northeast is building a Northeast fire truck, the South is building a South fire truck, the West Coast is doing West Coast shit. The Upper Peninsula is doing what they do. Like there's all these different fire apparatus that are being built, and we're not talking about, like, nobody was talking about and highlighting the innovations that were happening on fire apparatus.
And why are they different? Yeah.
Right. And the why behind, like, hey, like we see this, like why is this here? Like we met San Diego when we were out at Pierce, and like I've never done wildland urban interface stuff before. That's not in our wheelhouse in the state of New York, especially not to the scale that they do it in California. But like they had these hooks in the back of the truck that, like, they're like poles that come out, and they're on the length of the hose bed, but they essentially can loop the attack line off the back and just put it on there, so it's like forms a big loop. Like once they're done using it, they can quickly like kind of loop it up there, and they can just literally ride the tail step to the next house they have to do interface protection with, and then the poles push in, the hose drops out, they can stretch it back. It's just as quick.
Such a good idea.
Right. And that, like, that won't work where I work, but when I was a volunteer and I was doing wildland fires, or brush fires as we just call them, and we had to move the mini pumper because, oh shit, like now it's over here and there's only 3 trucks here, like, so we got to move it. Like, instead of dragging that hose all around with us or trying to just lop it up over into the hose bed and hope for the
Usually
best.
What we did.
Yeah. Like there's dead space. Like this is something like you could do an in-house fabrication and have this on your truck, and it was perfect, So like stupid stuff like that. Or I think the best one I saw was Gluckstadt, Mississippi. And for anybody from Gluckstadt, if I'm mispronouncing that, I apologize. We were intoxicated when we met you, and we were, very. But anyway, on the front cowling of the engine, on the corner, they took a brow light that would normally be up high, and they put it on this front corner piece. And we're like, hey, why do you do that? And they're like, oh, well, in Gluckstadt, Mississippi, the town code says you have to have a brass mailbox with a copper number on it, and it's really hard to spot at night. So instead of having the brow lights up here, we put them down here. And when we turn them on, you can definitely see the mailbox, and you can see how deep the ditch is, so you can make a wider swing into that driveway when you're going in towards the house.
That's cool.
Like, genius.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh yeah, we've had this on and it's now a item on Pierce's fire apparatus when you're ordering it. Like it is an option. But we highlighted it and we talked about it. And like there's so many people who are like, holy crap, like why didn't we think about that? But it's just it's one of those weird things, So like that's kind of the cool thing about that,
Yeah. No, it's amazing. I love the fact that you guys get to talk to so many people from across the US and see all these different trucks and see things like that. It'd be nice if there was like if you guys ever feel like it, get a database of like, oh, this is the cool stuff the Midwest has come up with, or this is the cool stuff, whatever, just like, but that's a lot of.
We have tens of thousands of photos, and it's literally like just cataloging all of it. Like it's one of the major projects that we want to, Taylor, we will hire you, as we pay horrible. The working conditions are miserable, but like we'll get you on to help us.
Wouldn't be so bad. I could totally do it. Just open up Lightroom and tag everything in there. It'd be done in a snap.
Taylor. Okay.
Do free work.
I know one thing that I sent you was, like, and we talked about it a little bit beforehand off camera, but like the memorable fires thing, and just to kind of like rotate back towards like the training and like the buildup of training and like everything else. Like in January 2012, it was a cold night. We had a storm front moving in, and it was a night like any other night. We went to bed.
Sorry, that sounded like a really great like intro to a movie or something.
Oh yeah.
Okay, go on. Sorry.
But we got a call early in the morning for house fire. And it was very dramatic in its dispatch. It was like a house fire fully involved with people trapped.
Oh geez.
And we responded to the call, obviously. And then like when we pulled into the block, we could smell the house burning, but we couldn't see it. And there was a police car in front of the building. And it was when they first started switching over to LED lights. So like, I just remember I was like, wow, it's like really bright, but I don't see the fire. And the LED lights from the light bar ended up drowning out the light of the fire for where we would normally be able to see the glow. And when we pulled up in front of this place, it was it was it was going from stem to stern, like, and a bunch of kids outside, and college students. It was the quietest I've ever heard, and I always wonder if it was like auditory exclusion on my part from being, because like I don't want to say I didn't expect fire, because I know people had said like, hey, it's fully involved, blah blah blah. But when we pulled into the block and we actually passed the house, I was like, wow, like this is more than a good job. And it was well involved. And but at the end of the day, like, I was driving the engine and I worked the hardest I had ever worked before, as a pump operator, like stretching lines, just trying to do everything that I could do to be helpful to make this outcome a little bit better. Ultimately, we lost 3 college students, and Carrie, Eva, and Kevin. And it was a tough call. I don't talk about the night too much, but everything that I had worked up until that point, from being a volunteer in PG County and like running lines and really taking ownership of what my job was as a firefighter, played into an effect that night to make me the most effective firefighter that I could be, to give those kids the best chance that they had. And sometimes the cards aren't dealt in our favor. And that night, unfortunately, it wasn't. And we lost 3 of them. But we did, like I said.
Sorry, that sucks.
Here it is.
I'm very fortunate. I have not gone through a fire with a fatality before, but I can only begin to imagine, I'm gonna say, just how, I don't know how you even begin to wrap your head around that or cope with that, or, because you're right, sometimes there's nothing you can do differently. Sometimes it's just all stacked against you, and even if you train as good as you trained, it's not going to help anything.
Right.
You help for making it worse, yes, but you can't make anything better. And I think us as firefighters, yes, we're adrenaline junkies. I'm not gonna, slide that, because that's totally true. But we don't want to go to fires to see people's stuff burn down, see them lose their homes, to see them lose lives. That doesn't bring, at least me, if I know you or other people, doesn't bring us joy. That's not why we love going to fires. We love going to fires to make things better, to make things as good as we can, and to save as much as we can. And so when you can't save anything from where it was, when you only stop it from getting worse, it's a feeling that is almost indescribable.
Yeah, I related to the experience as despair, like, and being very much like helpless, and especially knowing how much work we did in the beginning, and then knowing what the result ended up being. But at the same time, it was what it was. And one of the things that I do on the side is I'm a member of the Hudson Valley Critical Incident Stress Debriefing Team, and we're very fortunate. We have this old guy with us, Howard. He is a hippie. He's a psychiatric doctor, or a psychiatrist, sorry, he worked for Hudson Valley, or no, Harlem River Psychiatric Center. Like, he was essentially locked into a mental health unit with some of the state's worst. So Howard's seen some shit.
Yeah.
And you look at him and you're just like, this is not a psychiatrist. There's no way. But like, he's got a fanny pack, he's got his hair in a ponytail, and he drives a Prius, and he's just everything. Like, if you could, profile a Prius driver who's an older white male, it's Howard. But I digress.
Yeah.
When we do debriefings, one of the things Howard always says is that, like, in the final moments of these people's lives, when that transition was happening from the living to the dead, and that soul or whatever you want to believe was there, that person or people were surrounded by people who unconditionally loved them and cared about them. And we always tell people that that is what we did. When we showed up, like, even though the situation was helpless, there was no good outcome, like, that person was surrounded by love and people who unconditionally cared about them. They didn't care what political party they belonged to. They didn't care about their race. They didn't care about their sex or gender or any of the other hot topic issues that are out today. We just cared about that person unconditionally. And to somebody that's out there beyond us, that matters. And it was that bit of advice that I had heard many times that finally rang true for me in that hopeless and helpless situation, was that at the end, at no point in time did we ever disrespect those people who were lost. We treated them with dignity, from the start to the finish, and we held on to that. And it's so important for us to kind of remember that, because that was, like I said, that was a very pivotal fire for me, because I never seen such young life snuffed out, no pun intended, in such a manner before.
Mhm.
And there was 3 kids who had the world in front of them, and it ended. But at the end, like, we surrounded them with complete love. And like I said, it might sound corny to some people, but it is what it is.
Who
And
cares
that's
if
what
it sounds corny? I mean, people worry too much about sounding corny that they aren't expressing what they're actually feeling. And
right.
the reason something is corny is because there is truth to it somewhere. There is a part of you that wants to hear that and that needs to hear that.
Yeah.
And everyone talks about it sounding corny and they play it off. But we need more of that.
Yeah. Because it's the truth,
Mhm.
So we ended we started that year horribly, but we ended that year with getting a grab at the end of it. We had a fire on Yates Avenue in Fairview, and my partner and I, Ryan Keefe, we were able to we had a basement fire come in. There was people reported trapped, and we started having, like, a millisecond of a flashback of being like, oh crap, don't let this happen again. But we got on scene. Like, I ended up you know mule kicking the front door in, and I could hear a guy, and I was like, hey, just come towards me. He's like, what? He was so overcome by the smoke, so I just ended up, like, bear hugging into, like, a blind sweep, almost like a think of the finger sweep for the Heimlich maneuver. And, like, I grabbed this guy and I pulled him out of the house, and his wife was up the stairs, or up on the second floor, and the fire was in the basement. And we ended up going up the stairs. We found the woman. She was very worried about her dog, and understandably so. I looked through the thermal imaging camera, and Ryan said, I got it. And I could see this firefighter, and he looked like he was going to make a running play, like it was the longest yard or something. But he had this little
Oh,
dog stuffed up underneath his arm, like a football. And the dog, like, I remember I could see the outline of the dog, and the dog just belonged there. Like, it was like, okay, this guy's here to help me. And we dragged this woman out, and she went unconscious going down the stairs. And but we got out, like, we passed her off, we passed the dog off, and then we went to the basement, put the fire out. So all these things happened very quickly, but it was a positive outcome. And it was a positive outcome because we took something very tragic and we pushed ourselves to become better firefighters. We pushed ourselves to make sure that we were meeting a standard that we set for ourselves, because we knew what the gravest extreme looked like. We knew what happens if even we do everything right on a good day, and there's a bad result. So that was like a kind of a positive cap at the end of the year. And it wasn't until our annual dinner, where we were getting an award for it, that we were able to hear the chief write a letter from the woman, and she was making her peace with God, on that second floor. So to know that we had that kind of positive impact, like, for me, I was like, holy shit, like,
yeah.
I'm just supposed to go to fires and have fun. And it was definitely impactful. So, like, for me, like, I always tell people that, like I said, like, listen, I even bring new people to the addresses. And I say, this is where everything went right and things went horribly wrong. And here's a place where everything went right and it worked. And this is what this woman said to me. And, take this shit seriously, because one day there's going to be somebody who's preparing themselves like that, and you're going to come through the smoke and get them out. And that's very important. So like, it's just all goes back to that whole bracketing and framing training and getting us in that mindset, no matter what, whether we're taking a paycheck or we're, a career, a volunteer somewhere. It doesn't matter, because the person who's making that piece doesn't know who's coming to get them. They just know that they think the end is coming. And if we're there and we can get them, awesome. So
your the community deserves to have firefighters, career volunteer that are willing to do that and who are trained to do that. And we should be honored, and we should fight to be trained to that level and want to do that. There's not many people who will do this, and it's hard to find volunteers and people who want to apply to career jobs all the time. Mm-hmm. Everyone's always searching, and right now it's even worse. People are really just trying to get people to start knocking on the doors and come in. And if those of us who are left at the moment don't take those chances to train and don't take it seriously, I don't want to see anyone end up in a situation where they lose somebody unnecessarily.
Yeah.
Where it could have been avoided.
Kurt Isaacson, I think, says it's worth the risk all the time. And like, he's right, because it is worth the risk. And if there's anybody out there that's like on the edge about this, like, I think we both can say it's worth the risk to come through that door, to do the training, to dedicate your life to this, because the payoff is huge, and it's more, there's no numeric value we can put on that.
And if you don't think you're in shape enough for it or whatever, I mean, I am kind of testament to this. I'm starting a new workout regimen and stuff like that here actually today and stuff like that. And I'm not happy with where I'm at, but guess what? I'm going to fix it. So that way, if I get put in a situation or whatever, my training's going to be better. My working is going to be better. I'm going to be better for it. So if you don't think you're fit enough to do it, start doing something, making a change to get in that direction to be able to do this quote unquote job.
Yeah, 100%.
So is there anything else you want to touch on in regards to any of the members' things or strictly fire stuff?
No, I mean, I think we've covered a lot of ground, and quite honestly, like, this podcast may get negative reviews, so I don't want to bring anything down.
I'm prepared for negative reviews. I've already been through plenty of them, so don't worry. So if you're all right, I kind of want to move on to an almost unrelated, well, it is unrelated, but I feel like I need to come up with a name for this section of the show. Okay. But I don't know what to call it. So I'll come up with it later, but unless you have something really awesome on your brain right now to call it.
We'll light a fire. There's smoke coming, so we're gonna have a fire showing soon, so it's all right.
From me or from you?
From me. We'll formulate this while we're going through it.
Okay. I want to start talking about marriage and family, and because honestly, if people haven't listened to past episodes, I am married to a now career firefighter. We were both volunteer for a while, but now he's career, and it's fantastic. But I was going through a hard time for a little while, getting used to this. And that's just academy life. This isn't even getting into the actual on-shift life of full 24-hour shifts. I need as much information and advice as I can get. And I think if I'm having questions about this, and if I want people's opinions and their advice and how things work for them, other people must too. It's something I haven't heard talked about enough. And I really want to start bringing that to light, because as much as we all love the fire service, I am wholeheartedly a believer in family should come first. And we need to figure out how to keep the fire and first responder divorce rate as low as possible and to keep our families happy and to keep everything working right. So
we should call this segment Family Firefighter Survival.
Hey, thank you. Can I use that for forever?
Yes.
Okay.
And we can also, like, its initials will be FFS. So some people will think we're saying for fuck's sake, but no, we can totally do Family Firefighter Survival. So
oh, that's perfect. Family Firefighter
Survival. For fuck's sake, Family Firefighter Survival. Let's do it. No.
Perfect. I love it. That's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is why you're on tonight, because
We're trademarking the shit out of this, everybody. It's already trademarked. Our attorneys are on it, so don't even try.
Are you an attorney now? Is one of your personalities an attorney?
No. I'm just Taylor. I'm trying to make it seem like we're bigger than we actually are. So
hey, sorry.
Let's roll with this. No. But yeah. All right. So
family firefighter
survival.
Or is it firefighter family survival?
No, because the family comes first.
Oh, very nice. Very, very nice. All right. Thank you. Family firefighter survival segment. All right. So I'm just going to kind of give you a couple different questions and you can kind of just go wherever you want to with them. So I was going to kind of say a few things off the top of my head and just feel like, yeah, go wherever. So, and I'm not going to give you a chance to answer these in between the questions. So it's just, you can just kind of go into your story after this. But when you went through academy stuff, first of all, were you in a relationship? Were you not? How did things work if you were? When you went on shift for 24-hour shifts, I'm assuming you have how'd that work, stuff like that. What stuff look like now for you? Do you have anything you guys regularly do to help with that? And was there anything big that, if you want to talk about, that happened in ways you found to work around it, or other issues or things like that? So I'll kind of either re-ask these questions if you need it, or kind of pop in once in a while and ask for deeper things if you need, or more clarification on things. But so, yeah.
All right. So the academy, I was single. I had a horrible mustache. That was quite hellacious. And I'll find a picture of that one day, and send that to you. And then you'll be like, we are deleting this podcast. This man is creepy. So,
well, I think mustaches are creepy. So there's that. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I get it. Like if I grow one, Chris Hansen comes out and is like, all right, are you Fairview 39? Anyway, so I didn't have anybody in the academy except myself and my family. And I was just trying to survive and get through it because I had a couple issues going on behind the scenes. Everybody makes mistakes. So it's one of those things that I can talk about. But at the time, prior to getting hired, I had a motor vehicle accident, and unbeknownst to me, my insurance had lapsed. Ooh. So I paid the other person's insurance claim. Like the insurance company was like, hey, and I was like, yep, I'll pay it. Like I didn't realize it happened. I got the insurance back, whatever else, fixed it. And then once I had made the payment, that insurance company, through a clerical error, reported me to the state of New York. So mid-stride through the academy, my driving license was suspended and restricted.
Dang.
And I was like, shit, I'm going to lose my job because of this. So I had a restricted license for a year, so I could drive to work and at work and then back home from work and to like where my residence was. So like I had to do some, weird, I made my mom's house my permanent, like my residence again on my license, so I could see my mother and go to Sullivan County. And then I could, but like I had an apartment in Poughkeepsie, obviously like it wasn't a big deal there, but it's just down the street from the firehouse on the way. But like it was really stressful. So like I had that external stressor happening. And I came forward to the department and said, hey, listen, this happened. I don't know what to do. Expecting them to fire me. And they were like, all right, like, we'll take care of it. Like, and it was not a big issue. I just had to, so like that I had that when I was in the academy. The relationships that I have, prior to meeting my wife, I had dated people who are in EMS and the fire service, and people who are not. It was tough, but it wasn't tough because everybody kind of had some type of understanding of what was going on. And then my wife, Molly, like I met her at a holiday party for the emergency room for Mid-Hudson Regional Hospital. Well, it's St. Francis at the time. So, but I met her there, and then she had actually crashed the party with fake tickets. She had counterfeit tickets that we didn't pick up. So, that was cool. But, I crashed her party afterwards, so it was equal. But no, like we met and then we went on a date after And this was in the shadow of this horrible fire that I had experienced on Fairview Avenue. So like that happened in the end of January, and by I think actually I know February 16th was our first date because we both hate Valentine's Day. So like we were not going to go on a first date on Valentine's Day.
I'm with you there. Something irks me about Valentine's Day. I hate it.
It's bullshit. That's what irks us.
The day after we go get a bunch of candy. That's been our Valentine's Day tradition.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, go on.
So, but like work was stressful, and in the beginning, Molly worked, for a commercial EMS agency. So like we had rotating schedules. She ended up getting a job in a hospital, and it was rotating shift work. So we kind of were on the same page. It wasn't until she switched from that rotating position to working like a more of a Monday through Friday, or what we would call in the fire service day work, that issues started to happen because, we had to do things on the weekends. Like previously, like we had a loose schedule, so we would both be off on a Wednesday, Thursday, and a Friday, kind of thing. And that's where like things became difficult, because everybody's taken off on the weekends, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And just that work-life balance became unbalanced, and no fault of hers. It was just I was the one who had to adjust to it. So like that was something to deal with. And then the other thing was there came a point where between my firearms training business, work, the stresses of work, and then like volunteering in Hyattsville down in Prince George's County as a quote unquote weekend warrior, as we called ourselves, something had to give. And it was when I started to realize that I was having some issues with ADHD, and maybe I wasn't just an idiot. Like there's actual like diagnosis that was coming underneath of what was going on, and it was affecting all these other things. So like, the Reader's Digest version was I stopped for a while teaching firearms classes, and I actually handled that really horribly. I kind of burned a place that I had been teaching out of. I replaced myself with another instructor, but I didn't handle it appropriately because I was so overwhelmed, and
Mhm.
I'll never get the opportunity to take that action back, because I, hurt a friendship in the process of that. But live and let live, and learn, or something like that.
Yeah.
Put that up on a Marilyn Monroe poster or something for as an inspirational quote. But so one of the things I started doing was unplugging, and our fire district where I worked for at the time, the management was on this. They had a mindset that you were on duty 24 hours a day, and they had us convinced to always pay attention to what was going on in the fire district for callbacks and stuff like that. So we were like, and I know myself in particular, I was like really tuned into what was happening. It was almost like it was my full-time job, and then like being a volunteer at night and coming home and turning on a pager. Like we have a pager, like that's how we get our callbacks. Like they'll put a manpower tone out, and okay, we got to go to work. But it was to the point where like if a call went out, I would turn a scanner on to listen to what was going on at work when I'm supposed to be at home with my family. And once I did that, I was turning myself into like work mode.
Mhm.
And then there was no clear popping the clutch and getting back and disengaging from that. So I had to take actions to stop, set boundaries, really is what it came down to. And I know we had an offline discussion about this today, but like I had to start getting a bottom line and a boundary of when work was going to be allowed to affect me and when it wasn't going to be allowed to affect me. And it was a struggle because I had been so all in thinking it was the right thing. And I'm not saying it was a wrong thing, but when it affects your family life at home and the people you love, it shifts into the wrong lane. It's the wrong thing,
Yeah.
or in the wrong thing column. So for me, that was a tough part. And it was kind of balancing all of that out. There was a couple times where there was some promotions, and promotions happened, they didn't happen, a struggle, but like communication was a big thing, and learning to communicate with my wife and tell her what was going on was difficult because I didn't want to. I don't say I didn't want to bother her, but I didn't want to bother her. I didn't want to like bring my bullshit into her life. She's got her own problems. She doesn't need to hear me whining about not getting promoted, or you know whatever's going on at work, and um, so that was a struggle. But then like I figured out the more we communicate and have a open conversation about things, the better off. Like if she's informed, she knows what's going on, and I'm informed, and I know what's going on with her, and like it works out a lot better.
It's something I found out. I I'm a little lucky in this aspect, but it's something I found out right away with Chris. If we get the crap out of the way right away when we first see each other, and you spend 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes like really just getting into the crap and just like the stuff like that, you can get to better meaningful conversation the rest of the evening or whatever, rest of the day. And
Yeah.
you actually enjoy it instead of worrying about all the stuff in the back of your head. You've got it out there. They know what's happening. They're on the same page, and you move on with your relationship while you're home.
Yeah. And for me, like it was self-reflection into a lot of things that were going on that I never like. So like, I'd hit on it before a little bit, but like I have, all my life I knew I had ADHD or something was wrong with me. And I made a joke about it that I should have been on the Ready Readers or their whatever, they used to have all these different reading groups. Like, there was the cardinals and the sparrow and like all these good birds. And then there was like the black crows, like that's where I should have been, not with the band, but with the reading group.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, like, I got diagnosed with ADHD. We started treating it with medication, which worked to a point, but like I had to start setting myself up to be successful because all of the things that I should have learned, I just didn't, and because like I'm very good at video games. I'm very good at things that stimulate my brain in a certain way, like fire trucks and fire sirens and looking at fire apparatus.
This sounded very familiar.
Hi, my name's Rob R, and I have a fire truck problem now. But like, and it's and I what I guess really where it came down to, Taylor, was I couldn't understand why I was so good at being a firefighter.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can be an excellent firefighter, but I'm a horrible husband in certain aspects, and I'm horrible at like managing my own personal affairs, my like finances and everything else. And like it's a conundrum that really got in my head because, like I said, I can go to a house fire and I can make the right calls. I can go to a car accident and make these tough decisions, and like handling the emergencies is easy. But why can't I balance a checkbook or figure out how not to spend money on, a like a squirrel catcher or some stupid bullshit like that, like, and I didn't have the skill set. And my, I talk about like therapy, and I'm very open at like, I go to, and I have a therapist and stuff like that. And therapists are like shoes. You have to find one that fits you.
Mm-hmm.
There's no like one fits all person, but I had a really, really on point therapist one day who said, "Hey man, like it works like this. Like when somebody's holding a gun to your head and it's loaded and they cock back the hammer, it's really easy to focus on the gun because it's going to kill you. And like once that stress is, away, like you can relax and you've gotten the problem solved. And that's what being a firefighter is like. And a lot of people can't have a gun pointed at them and figure it out. He's
Mm-hmm.
like, people can't do what you do, but for whatever reason, you're wired for it. But the other stuff, like you struggle with, and it's okay because that's who you are. And once I had that mindset of being like, you're right, like he's like, and he says like, it's not like you show up and a house is on fire and somebody's like, my kid's inside, and you're like, hold on, I'm still trying to figure out how I lost that game of poker. Like, no, like you're like you are right on to it. You're like, all right, I gotta go. Like, and it's very easy because that gun's at your head and you can comply and you can do what you need to do to get that gun out of your face. And I was like, all right, and I had to learn how to, like I said, I had to learn how to be a better person because I wasn't the best husband. I wasn't the best person with my own finances and everything else because I had, never learned that stuff before. So like, so I don't think that answers the question. I think I just rambled on there, but
That's fine. Well, it gave a look into just some things that you guys went through and whatnot. So what do you do anything now to make things easier to work on things, either with, because you had mentioned setting boundaries and stuff with the work at home, so I'm assuming you don't keep scanners on stuff all the time anymore or stuff like that, or what are some of those steps you've taken for that? Or
yeah, so
yeah.
I've disabled notifications on my phone for like our active 911 or our rover Mobile, the two apps that we use. Like I'm very short with my boss if he calls or if anybody calls, like with the exception of my own guys. My own guys call, they get my 100% attention as an officer because I'm responsible for them even when they're not in my charge. Like I think I said it with Corley Moore when we were talking on the weekly scrap. Like I'm not just a fire, or I'm not just a lieutenant to Mike, Joe, and Jake. I'm a lieutenant uh, to Mary, to Maria, to Isabella, to little Jojo and little Mary, to Mama Bear Lawler, to Coach Wagner, to like the people that are involved in their lives. So like for them, if they call me, I answer, but that's part of the position. That's the responsibility you accept. But like when like the boss calls me, he's like, hey, like I have a problem. I'm like, hey, no problem. Like, something happened the other day. And hey, chief, with all due respect, if this is a pressing issue, I'll take the time and answer it. But I'm at home with my family right now and I'm trying to do something. Can it wait till Monday when I come into work? And if he says no, it can't wait, then okay, like, what is it, chief? Like, let's get it figured out. But if it can wait, he respects that boundary as well. So like that's one thing. Like I said, shutting down the alerts so I'm not like constantly on guard. Because like I think like if you have a duty night or if you've ever worked overnights at a fire station or any kind of emergency services job and had to like you go to bed with you're ready for the radio to go off, like you don't really
your
sleep.
life everywhere, I tell you.
Yeah.
You're ready for that page to go off anytime.
And then like from the aspect of like just I think there was an educational component for me and my wife to figure out the language that I was using, and like Aaron Fields talks about jargon in the fire service and how like if you were a tradesman, like if you were a plumber, like a right angle, a 90-degree elbow of copper pipe that's 1 inch is the same thing from the East Coast to the West Coast and in the middle of America. A T square is a T square for carpenters, pretty much everywhere. But for the fire department, we have different jargon. And, it was for my wife to understand what I was going through and not only to be like, hey, like this is happening, but like to show that I was working on it, that I wasn't like, oh, hey, there's an issue here. And, I'm just, like that's my excuse. So
so you guys have been working on communication and the language and the just the jargon. Did you finish that thought with the jargon?
I think I did.
I may have missed the end.
So in the end, like the one thing with the jargon is like, and why it was so important though, is that there are things that I was doing in my relationship that, and it's there's no shame in repeating this. There were times where my wife wasn't sure if anything was real because with my ADHD, I could totally pay attention and just be like, yeah, okay, yeah, all right, I hear you, and then like repeat what was said and forget about it. And like it was important to understand, like for me and for her was to understand that like this has been my whole life. And my brother-in-law, because I had a lot of like, I don't want to say trauma and sound like a complete wuss, but like I had trauma from high school because I knew I wasn't learning and I knew something was wrong. But there was this funny YouTube channel called How to ADHD, and it had they use a cartoon brain because then they call everybody that watches the channel brains because our brains are wired differently. But the brain was reading a book called Try Harder, and it's sweating, and it put the book down, and or no, the book was Try Hard, and then it put the book down and it started sweating profusely, and it was Try Harder was the next book it picked up. And that's been my whole life. Like I've always been told to try hard, or I wasn't trying hard enough, or I was lazy. Just all these really like unmotivational things to begin with at baseline.
Yeah.
And my brother-in-law explained it that like when I went to school, like it was McDonald's, except they didn't want you to have it your way. Like the school system wants you to have a cheeseburger with a pickle. And when you say you don't want a pickle, they really have a hard time at adjusting to that, even in today's world. And
oh yeah,
And that was what my brain was. And I had to figure that out. And I had to figure out and really like communicate and reassure my wife and say, like, listen, I'm not trying to be horrible. Like, this is how it's always been. Like, there are moments that I just don't remember from things. Almost to the point where you would think that I had early onset dementia, except that if you start talking to me about the conversation,
It'll come
eventually, like,
back.
it comes back and I'm like, holy shit, I totally did have that conversation with you. Um, so like being able to understand that and communicate that and find that, I don't want to say that ground, but like find that groundwork with my wife to be able to communicate that, and we work with a marriage counselor, like it, or a therapist. So John's not really a marriage counselor per se by trade, but like it was somebody that we both were comfortable with,
Mhm.
and it really helped us, and helped me figure out like the skills that I needed to become a better husband, and for her to understand what I was going through, and like learning. I mean, I'm almost 40 and I'm relearning how to be an adult.
We need to normalize therapists and marriage counselors more than what we do, and not wait until things are too late, and work
Yeah.
on things. Even if you're in a healthy marriage, I mean, why do you go to the gym? You go to the gym, I mean, granted, a lot of people go when they're out of shape and need to get back in shape, right? But a lot of people go to the gym while they're already in shape to keep themselves in shape and get better. So why wouldn't you do that for your marriage or for your mind if you're single?
Yeah. And there's no shame in it. I have no problem talking about being in therapy and working through stuff, because there's a litany of shit that I've seen and I've been through and horrible experiences like that, like just quite honestly, nobody should have to see and like or have dealt with. And either way, like it's happened. But like now, like for me, it's happened, but like now, like we're not gonna let it hold us back. We're not gonna let it define us.
Mhm.
So
So
that's
when you got on your current shift schedule with your wife working what she works, because she currently works weekdays now still, or
yeah.
okay. So how long did it take you guys to get used to it or get into a good rhythm with it? Or has it ever gotten to a good rhythm with it?
Um, it's not so much that it's gotten into a good rhythm as much as like, I for me, it was very much the like communicating. Like there was a time where I just never consulted with her about what
Mhm.
I was doing or picking up overtime and stuff like that. And it's making sure that like when I'm there, I'm present, and I'm not distracted, because like if I have to work a weekend or whatever else, like hey, it's part of the job. Like it is what it is. But like making sure that I'm, I say this like, feel kind of silly, but like make sure I'm a good husband. Like make sure that I'm making the time and not getting distracted by what's, work, whatever it might be, and like being there, like trying. I'm attempting to be there 100% of the time, all the time. Like when so that like she knows like this is our time together, and be that like not getting distracted by my phone, putting my phone down, coming up with set plans, like making phone calls to people and hanging out, and like, just making sure that we're doing something other than sitting on a couch looking at our phones in the same room.
Yeah. Is there anything you guys do? And you don't actually have to have anything, but is there anything you guys do to either keep normalcy or to make things better or to make your marriage better, or it's anything this could be like a date night, or it could be something like to do together, or it could be maybe you guys sit and you specifically talk about stuff for first 10 minutes when you get home, or is there anything you guys do to make things easier? Or maybe it's you guys give each other a little alone time once you get home. I don't know. To like, like you do your separate things for a little bit before you cool down or whatever. Is there something you guys have found that works to keep you guys closer?
um I mean, we got to keep this pretty PG, but no, uh no, in all honesty, like joking aside, um just like for me, and I can't speak because like Molly has been stand up the whole time, like she's not the problem. Like
Mhm.
it's been my, not that like everybody obviously can make mistakes. I'm not saying she's like this perfect person and blah blah blah. Like, we're all with our faults, but like it was me who needed to do the work because I had the issue. And the trade-off was I recognized that I had to do the work. I acknowledged I had to do the work. I communicated to her that I had to do the work. And I communicated like through a third party, aka the person we sat down with, like as a therapist, to say like, hey, like this is going on and this is what I figured out. And I really put, like, it was, like I said, the last couple of months, a lot of work went into this from my part. So she understood where it was coming from. I can give a tip to men who are, or just anybody who's a significant other in the situation, because I don't want to be canceled like Dave Chappelle. But no, like, in all honesty, like, it doesn't matter who you are. Men, if you are married to a beautiful woman, or your wife or whoever it might be, and they like Kate Spade bags, the Kate Spade outlet online is a great thing to subscribe to, because it's a reminder in your phone. Like every 3 months, you can get a Kate Spade bag, and your wife will be very happy with you. Um, but no, like, honestly, like, but it's the things like that, like trying to pay attention to what she likes, and making sure that I can kind of deliver on some of those things, like getting
I
flowers
like
to her.
that. That is awesome, because it can be something as little as, like you just said, flowers or something, or it could be
Right.
something big like a Kate Spade bag. You figure out, and this can go both ways for both spouses, because heck, I know he does a lot of stuff and he gets stressed and stuff like that, and I need to show the same thing to him. Knowing your spouse and doing those little gestures to show that you are paying attention, you know what they like, you care, and doing it out of the blue. I mean, you said before that you guys don't like Valentine's Day. We don't either. We kind of do things like that throughout the year, just kind of little things here and there. It doesn't have to be anything big, huge, grand, roses everywhere, big gesture. It's just a little something to know that you care.
Yeah, because you do care about the person you're with. And if you don't, you need to have a serious conversation with a bunch of people, but one of them including yourself. But, like, you do care about the person, and it should be easy. And just, like I said, like, there's a time where my analytical brain was thinking about her issues. And you know I love my wife. Like, I don't want her to go anywhere. And, like, that's like, I hate, I don't want to say I hate saying it, because I don't hate saying it, but, like, maybe in the context of it, but, like, the fact that that even started to, like, like, it didn't cross my mind, because the thought came up, and I said, no, I love this woman, and I married her for a reason. And, like, I'm going to put the work in. Like, if it's taking me this long to figure out what's going on, I'm going to do the work. So, because I love her. And I think that's important for people, that, like, you can fight for that. Like, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody tries to tell you you can't, or tries to convince you that the job is more important, or whatever else, like, you can send those people packing out of your life. You will be much better.
Like we said before, there's corny for a reason. It's true. You need the corny stuff, because that's what is deep in our hearts. We are sentimental beings. I don't care how tough of a guy you think you are, you love somebody.
Hmm.
And you shouldn't be afraid to show it and to get
Yeah,
sentimental like that. So
100%.
all right. Thank you for talking about that with me.
No problem.
It,
This
it's
is a new segment that's you've done a couple of times, called Family Firefighter Survival. So
awesome. I'm really excited to make it a staple for every episode I do, and I can't wait to talk to more people about it and kind of get their perspective on their own families and things if they're wanting to talk about it. So
I think
hopefully
it's
we
a great
can.
thing.
I was like, hopefully we can spread the good vibes and the wanting to work atmosphere on your family and your marriage and stuff to the rest of the fire service, and make it be big and contagious.
Absolutely.
So it's been a lot of fun talking. We've
Yeah.
for not officially, because I don't know what's actually going to be once we cut a couple breaks out and things, but it's been about 2 hours or about two and a half hours since we've been starting talking. So it's been a lot of fun. We've kind of gone a bit of everywhere with our conversations and with our subjects, and eventually someday, if you want to be on again, I'd love to have you back, first of all.
Of course, likewise. So, it was a lot of fun. I do appreciate you taking the time tonight to have me on the podcast. It's always fun to sit in the interview seat and be interviewed. So, I appreciate it. So thank you very much, Taylor.
Yeah, if people want to find more of you or reach out to you, how can they do that?
Um, so obviously, I do follow the National Fire Radio account because we're kind of half and half in charge of it. But my own personal Instagram is fairview39. So on Instagram, you can find me on Facebook, and just shoot me a DM. And then if I don't answer, you probably went to the spam, so I apologize. But we'll find it eventually.
Those DMs, oh my, especially if it goes into the spam ones on Facebook, they go into the multiverse. They're just out there somewhere and you have no idea. They're not coming back.
Yeah.
Or like several months from now, they may come back. So I don't know if you've had any trouble with those happening too, and they just kind of disappear on you for a while.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Message request. That's where they will be.
Mm-hmm. I hate that section. I wish they would just get rid of it.
Yeah.
So.
But anyway, that's where you can find me. I think I have a Twitter, but I don't know what it is, and I'm on TikTok too, so that's fun. Robert Ridley on TikTok, I think.
I need to start a TikTok. I don't have one yet.
Oh, yeah, Robert Ridley on TikTok at Robert Ridley. I was first to market there. You can see my Freddy firefighter or fire engine video with 1.7 million views of the robotic fire truck trying to chase after its brothers.
I'm creating a TikTok account after we get off of this, and I'm gonna go check it out. That's awesome. Is there anything else you want to talk about, or anything you want to plug or anything, or?
We got the Joey D Foundation. So by the time this airs, the Joey D Foundation fundraiser will be over, but that's where we're heading in a little bit on the this coming November. But it happens every November. The Joseph DiBernardo Memorial Foundation and Training Day. And what this foundation does is provides firefighter bailout kits for fire departments that are financially stricken where they can't have a bailout system. Joey D was a victim, unfortunately, of the Black Sunday fire in New York City. And unfortunately, he passed away from complications from that fire a couple of years after. But there's a dedicated group, including his father, who keep his memory alive and are ensuring that firefighters in the country have a bailout system if they need it. There's a grant that you can apply for, and we highly recommend it. Check them out, give them a like and a follow. They're definitely, like I said, they're good people. So that's where we're going to be. Steve Sangavolce from Affordable Drill Towers and his group is going to be up there doing some stuff. They have a training tower that's in Long Island, and it's going to be it is the place to be. So like next year when this rolls around, like if you can't make it to FDIC or you can't make it to Firehouse Expo or like Revolutionary Fire Tactics at the Lake or wherever, like go, if you're in the Northeast, the Joey D Foundation, their training day is something to definitely check out. This year they got Bobby Eckert and Ray McCormick, and Mo Davis is going to be doing aggressive command. They have an all-star lineup that is fantabulous. So
I will not be able to make it this year, but I'm gonna put it on my calendar for next year to look into and try to get out there. So
yeah. Who's Saving You is the Instagram, I believe.
Okay.
Just double check that real quick, but make sure I'm not talking out of my. Yep, Who's Saving You is Kevin Yost, who helps organize it. But they have their own. There is a Joey D channel as well. So
okay.
But
no, we will. I will try to link those in the show notes if I can. So I will try to find everything for that in there.
And there is one other thing that I can plug. If you do follow me on social media, big thing. My cousin Ian Cooperstein was at EMT in Sullivan County. Was vaccinated. That's not a political statement for anybody that's out there, but ended up contracting COVID in September, and unfortunately he passed away from COVID-19 from complications. So for we're doing a fundraiser for him. Ian would be 40. He's actually, his 40th birthday would be January 9th. He was born a couple days after me, so he always picked on me that I was older. But we're trying to raise $40,000 in his memory to the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. So that's a very important thing for us that we're trying to do. So we're going to have a little bit more on that. And we're going to be reaching out to some of our friends in the community to see if we can raise some awareness and get some stuff going. So
that is, I remember you talking about that in Clubhouse one day, and I heard it and I was just like, that is a fantastic idea.
Yeah. So Ian was a true patriot, a big supporter of the troops, and emergency services. He believed in the family aspect of it, that the brotherhood, sisterhood. It didn't matter who you were and which badge you wore. If you needed help, he was going to help you out. And, that really speaks to his character. So his sister, Lisa, an incredibly strong person, and she came up with the idea. So we're moving forward with that. So yes. So thank you so much for having me. And
of course,
we'll look forward to that. I'm going to talk to you tomorrow in Clubhouse anyway, so it's going to be.
Oh, of course. Oh, yeah, duh. But yeah, no, yeah, I don't know how to end that. Yeah.
All right, everybody, thanks for coming in today.
You're just going to sign out for me. Oh, thank you for coming in today.
It's Rob, National Fire Radio, with Taylor Anderson from the Couplings podcast. Thank you for joining us. It's been a great show.
I'm so using that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for coming by and listening to the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a rating and review wherever you're listening. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram @Couplings Fire Podcast. See you next time, everybody.